Hello, everyone. I'm Marilyn Moore here with John Moore, and we're going to be talking today about how Hangouts and small business are made for each other, the perfect pair. And our special, very special guest is Ronnie Benser, who we'll be introducing in just a second, and we're really, really excited to have him with us. We would like to give a little shout out to our sponsors before we go any farther.
Get off of the screen. Go on us. Here.
And we are sponsored by the Oceanside Chamber of Commerce, and we're here right now broadcasting from lovely Oceanside, California, just steps from the beach. And the Oceanside Chamber is a very active, forward-thinking chamber, and they sponsor many wonderful civic events. Harbor Days is coming up in just a few weeks. That's one of the big events of the year, and they also have big supporters of the military because we're neighbors with Camp Pendleton, the Marine Corps training base. And it's our other sponsor is Richard Pete Hanna of Create a Computer Network, and Rich is behind the scenes here. He is our engineer for these shows, and thank you, Rich. That's a photo of him there. Right now he's got a lot more wires coming out from his screens and computers, but he is an IT guy that can help you with those needs, and we are Sonic Spider, and we have two sites. Sorry, Rich, going to give you another shout out. Sonic Web Tech for e-commerce and web support, and Ride Start websites for everything WordPress. So with that, I'm going to turn over to John, and he's going to introduce our guest, Ronnie Benser.
Okay, we are pleased to have Ronnie here. You know, everybody knows Ronnie if you're on Google Plus in some degree. He is known as the Hangout Helper. I've got a few shots here of him on the screen. One of them, an animated shot I stole from his profile. It was kind of fun looking. He's always very active. He's a very dynamic speaker. He has helped thousands of people worldwide mastering the power of social media. He has unique ability to assist various industries and market niches to blend the visual strength of Google Plus Hangout, broadcasts, and other social tools to communicate their message in the most impactful and effective possible way. So, without further ado, Ronnie, why don't you tell us a little more about yourself and the kind of things that really you're passionate about?
Sure. Hi, everybody watching live and those also watching live inside the room. It's a neat opportunity when you're actually able to do something virtual and what we call in real life at the same time. So I'm glad to be part of this. I've come from a little bit of a background that involved training, and that training eventually moved me into the realm of video SEO, or video search engine optimization. And then so when Google Plus first came out, I looked at it through the eyes of someone who cared about ranking my videos in the search results and ranking my activity in search results. So it was all about search from my perspective as to why I was interested in Google Plus. Then when Hangouts came out into the realm of this broadcast thing, it just became a natural thing for me to move into that realm and start training people how to use the tool, even though it was just brand new. I didn't necessarily know that much. I did know how to train. So whenever I'd figure something out, I'd tell people, this is what I just learned, here it is. And little by little, it came to the point where actually Google invited me to become what they call a trusted tester. And I'm one of their people that do beta testing for the Hangouts whenever they're about to roll something out new. I tend, not always, but I tend to have a piece in it to some degree. At least I can tell them, you know, why would you do that, or things like that. And that helps me in the sense of helping others stay on the cutting edge, so that when something new does just come out, like for example today, something just came out today, but I only learned about 20 minutes ago that implementation of it was slightly different than I expected. So I sent out a post warning people about the implementation. And you know what, John and Marilyn, I failed you guys because I didn't tell you the warning. I just sort of assumed that you might have seen it. So what you did today is what many will fall prey to is they have a brand new version of one of these little tools that's called the Applause app, and it lets people clap, but it also hides the comments inside the event.
Ah.
So right now, only the comments that we saw in the live event before we went live are what we're going to be able to track. The rest will be gone. We're not going to see any.
Oh.
It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And there's a trick: you just turn it off next time before you start the broadcast. But they just came in out with that today, and I wasn't sure if it's rolled out to everybody, and apparently it was rolled out to you. So, welcome to the fun.
Yeah.
So that's just. I was just going to say, that's just to give you an idea. This stuff is a constant moving target, and if anyone's been involved with any of these things online, either Facebook or Google, you're going to see constant changes, and that is one of the difficulties, honestly, for small business people, because you don't necessarily have the time to concentrate and try to follow up on everything that's happening. I do. That's my job. So I help people know that as soon as possible, and that, honestly, whether it's be Hangouts or something going on in Facebook, it's still something that is a challenge, honestly.
Well, we're very grateful that you're here with us today. At least we found some things out a little bit later than we liked, but at least we know what's heads up.
You bet.
Ronnie, maybe we could just lead off, because some people are in our audience have just heard of Hangouts, but not really sure exactly what it's all about. So maybe you could explain the different kinds of Hangouts, and I don't know if you want to get into the same discussion, but how they could be used.
Sure.
Small business.
Yeah,
do you
business.
want me to merge that all together, or do you want me to do one part and then sort of let you ask me and then I'll answer?
Well, probably now that I think about it, it would be best to do the first part by itself, and then we'll
Okay,
take.
let's do that, because that way you can control the conversation as to how it works best for you.
Perfect.
So what Hangouts are, honestly, is initially they started as a video communication tool internal to Google, because Google has offices literally all over the world. It's just ridiculous for them to expect to be able to meet with everybody independently, but now they've got a tool that allows them to do that. It's like Skype. If many people are familiar with Skype, it's a video conferencing environment, and they can have up to 10 people, sometimes 15, but generally it's 10 total in this little video room where you can all be talking to each other, and it really does not matter where you are geographically. So that's what the initial tool started with. It's just called a Hangout, or a Hangout video call. And it's a very, very helpful tool for productivity. But I'm about to get into why you'd use it. But let's move to the next thing.
Right.
Hangouts on air. So a Hangout video call versus Hangouts on air. Think of it this way. You've got a magic button you can press, and then your conversation is now broadcast live into the internet, literally all over the world with the press of a button. And it automatically becomes a video recorded for you by some little video company called, what is that? Oh, yeah, YouTube. So it's automatically, because Google owns all this stuff, they make it stream live through the YouTube pipeline, in essence, and they also automatically turn it into a video on YouTube when you're done. So it's not only the ability to have meetings and productivity, it's also the ability to do live broadcasting like we're doing right now, and do a recording with somebody that might be in a different office or a different part of the world, or multiple people from different parts of the world collaboratively communicating together, and then you make a video out of that without having to do much except press a button. So when you get right down to it, it's the video meeting room and video broadcasting tool that allows you to create video content as well as have video conferences or meetings.
That in itself is very impressive, and I know I asked you to talk about specific applications, but maybe you could be just to paint a picture here why this technology is just an amazing game changer for small business in particular.
For small business, in my mind, we never, and I am one of them. I are one of them. Okay, I would never have the money and the resources to be able to do video conferencing. It's just out of my price range, especially with the worldwide reach that we've got now. So I can now collaborate with people, and I do this on a daily basis all over the world, and have meetings. So, and the meeting is without me having to get out of my chair, honestly. And that's what I was joking about before we started live, or yeah, it was before we went live. I talked about I actually got out of the office today. So I did go out, but normally I'm sitting behind the computer or standing behind it all day long and being able to communicate with people all over the place. So if I did have multiple people within my business and I needed to communicate with them no matter where they are, they could be on their cell phone, they could be in an office across town, they could be visiting with someone else, and they need to ask me a question back at the home office or wherever. We can turn on the video capability and get much more efficient with what we're needing to do, because the bottom line is if you're on a phone, you can tell a lot about what's going on, but when you compare that to a face-to-face meeting, which is what we're doing here, it's like the dark ages. You can see by somebody nodding or shaking their head whether this is a yes or a no, and you can change your conversation before you even need to ask them what's the issue. You can sort of read what's going on because of the nonverbal cues that we're going to see inside video Hangouts. So for small business or large, I think the capability to do video conferencing for free, did I mention
Yeah.
it costs you nothing, it's free, is amazing to me. And literally no geography, no geographical boundaries. As long as someone's got the internet, we got it.
Well, I know even just for John and I, we're still learning all of this, as you can see, but still it is quite amazing for us to be able to do this. We're, you know,
Yeah,
a small group. And
I meet with a lot of our potential clients now on Hangouts, and it really makes a big difference. We really can short circuit a lot of the back and forth in a very. I would talk to somebody in the Caribbean. They're a conservation group, and they've got a website, and they're using PayPal, and I'm going to be doing their PayPal stuff for them. And so we had a video conference with their staff, and we talked about the issues that the staff was having. That wouldn't have been possible with a bunch of emails going around and the misunderstandings. In a matter of 15, 20 minutes, we kind of got on the same page with somebody in the Caribbean.
Let me bring up two quick ideas that you just mentioned that cued that in. One, misunderstandings are easier to fix. In other words,
yeah.
I have typed text, someone else says something in text, and we're like, no, this isn't doing it. Let's just do a Hangout. And then within a minute or two, we've got it all cleared up, and then we go back to doing our own stuff. So that capability right there is massively important, I think, because misunderstandings happen. It's just part of business. And it allows you to clear that up faster. The other thing that many small businesses don't think of is the global capacity. They'd say that doesn't apply to me. You know, I'm local. I just do my local thing. And what I would encourage you to think of is there may be someone in another part of the world that has knowledge that will be applicable to your local situation, and you can bring them in as a guest speaker to join in with you to help validate your perspectives. You got an expert from Italy helping you in Oceanside, California, because there's someone you met and you built a relationship with them. So the idea of being global might not seem to be that appealing to the small business person right away, but it really does have some very valuable options, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Definitely agree.
Okay,
We have a question from Vivek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you? I can't see it. Can you?
Yeah, you can put it up.
Oh, I thought we couldn't put it up.
Yes, we can, I think.
Yeah.
It up. There we go.
Okay, there we go. What do you think are major hurdles? Oh, I have the same question on my list, Vivek. Great. What do you think are the major hurdles in HOA adoption in businesses and your interactions with the smaller businesses?
I would get, when I say guess, I deal with all kinds of hurdles, let's put it this way, and I try to help people get past them. One hurdle is, why would I need to use it? If they don't, they usually don't get to me if they're just asking that, right? I mean,
yeah.
By the time they've come to me, they've decided this is something they want to learn or at least explore and try to figure out if it makes sense for them. But I would say that's one of the first hurdles is if you're a small business, your first question should be, is there real value for using this? What's the purpose? And if you can decide or determine that the amount of time it's going to take you to actually do a video or to do a communication situation is going to be beneficial to your business, then you move forward. If it's not, then you don't. But what I would encourage people, and I know some of the questions we were going to ask later, so I'm sorry, I'm going to bring them in here, and we'll remind you later.
Yes.
One of the easiest and best paths to learn this is to start using it for your productivity aspect. Forget the communication, broadcast, make it a video TV show. Just put that on the side for a moment. That's a bonus icing on the cake. Start out with a video call with you and a vendor, or you and someone else in your business, and start to communicate and see if it doesn't make a difference for you. When it does, which you will find it will, when it does, then turning it into some kind of a show or a broadcast is more of a natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to start with the productivity aspect of it and then move it into the more of the show kind of thing. At least that's what I encourage people to do. And as far as adoption, there was other people in the room that were talking about Facebook versus Google+. That's another big hurdle. There's a huge hurdle for people saying it's over in that Google Plus world. Well, if that's a problem for you because you're not a Google Plus fan, think of it this way. It's YouTube, right? Because most people on Facebook can handle YouTube. And so think of it this way. This is a YouTube live streaming broadcast or a YouTube meeting room. You don't have to even think of it as being as part of Google Plus. So, but that is a hurdle when people are in that realm of, I'm not sure if I can take on another social media place. If your goal, and I teach people this all the time, if your goal is to use the Hangout tool to create video broadcasts and to do meetings, you don't necessarily need to even embrace much of Google Plus at all. Now, that's not where I would encourage you if you're part of marketing what you're doing, but if it's for productivity only, you don't really need to know much about Google Plus.
I would just second what you said about how to get started, because that's actually how we got started. Well, I had interacted with you on Google Plus, and we wanted to know more, and so decided to join the Hangout Mastery Group. And then I said, John, you're the geeky guy, you're the tech guy. I'm going to throw that football over to you. But John got comfortable with it, started calling up clients or connecting with clients that way, was bowled over, even though we knew it in theory, to actually experience it, like, oh my gosh, we just wrapped everything up, they're ready to go, they're ready to work with us after a Hangout, where before it would be a series of calls and emails and so forth. So,
right.
And then that just kind of led to us starting to do this. We were already doing the in-person seminars, so kind of gone from a seminar more to an Hangout event, Hangout on Air event.
Yeah.
And but you're right, you start kind of with where you're at.
Oh, do you have a question over here?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, we're going to repeat your question because we found our audience can't hear it, so go ahead.
Okay. The information about the YouTube video being collected is new to me today, so I have like 2 or 3 nuts and bolts types of questions about that.
Okay,
That's okay.
So we have a question from our in-person audience about the connection with YouTube. So we're going to
And
go.
the nuts and bolts of YouTube.
Yeah.
In the equation.
So does it become a YouTube video the minute the Hangout ends? Yeah.
Yes.
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 It is broadcast live. Think of it this way. It's a YouTube live stream, if you know what that terminology is. It's a live streaming YouTube video, and then it becomes an, quote, archived video within 5 minutes. It could be a minute. It could be 4 minutes. It might be 5 minutes. But by the time you're done, you're within a very short period of time, you've got now a video that you can do things with. You could download it. You can edit it. You can make changes to it, etc.
Okay, yeah, those are my questions. Who actually owns that video to do those things?
The question was, who actually owns the video to do things like editing and modifications or whatever?
You bet. It's a one-to-one relationship. Inside Google Plus, there are 2 main entities. One's called a page, which is a business entity generally, and the other is called a profile, which is normally a person. It gets a little messy when you're a solopreneur because you are both, right? And so think of it this way. You're either a page or a profile, one of those, and each one of those will have its own YouTube channel. So if you're broadcasting this as a profile, then it's going to go on your profile connected YouTube channel. You could always download it and then upload it again somewhere else. But by default, it's going to go to whichever account has the YouTube channel connected to it. You can have a page that has its own YouTube channel. So usually you're going to have a profile with one YouTube channel, possibly a page with another YouTube channel, and whichever one you start it with, like in this case, John and Marilyn, you're using your page to do this broadcast, so it's going to end up on your page's YouTube channel automatically.
Right.
So you have to decide who's going to be the host. The host will then own it to edit it or whatever.
Right. Whoever
Well,
starts.
let's repeat the question.
Yeah.
The question was asked, you have to decide who is going to host or originate the Hangout, either you
Correct.
personally or your business.
Can
Right.
the host delete it?
Can the host delete the
The video?
video?
Sure. Yes, just like any video that you upload, if you didn't want it, you changed your mind, you could delete it, you can make it private, you can make it unlisted, or you can keep it public. Your choice.
Talk about the private thing, please.
He wants. The question is if you could talk a little bit more about what it means to have a private Hangout on air.
There is a method. We're not going to go into the exact details, but basically you can do a broadcast that is a private broadcast, and the only people that are able to view that broadcast, as well as the video that it makes afterwards, are the ones that you've invited to view it. Just like when you add a video to YouTube, you basically give it a list of people that have permission to see it. You do the exact same thing for the broadcast. It just happens to be you give that permission before you start the broadcast.
Right.
Okay. Legal concerns.
Okay, and we have a question on legalities.
Okay?
Thank you for answering the question about privacy. That's really important. I mean,
No,
Well,
that's
if
fine.
you're doing a conversation with a client, that could be a private
has to be.
Hangout, not a
don't-
Hangout on air.
You don't have to do a hangout on air.
Ronnie, maybe you could
Yeah.
differentiate those two again?
Sure. When we're in a regular, what's called a Hangout video call, there's no recording happening. It's just a video conversation. When you're done, you're done. Nobody sees any
Right.
residue.
Right.
Okay? That's what I would do normally with my private consultations. Now, I'm a trainer, so because I'm a trainer, I actually do a private Hangout on air because I want to make a recording to give my client the video of our session so that they can review it over and over as often as they want, because otherwise they're scribbling down all these notes and they just don't get as much out of the session. So because of that, I use private Hangout on air to do my consultations, but depending on your business model, you may not want to do that. You may want it to be a thing that just disappears when you're done.
Thank you for that, and I apologize for not understanding the
Oh, no,
distinction
no.
before.
Hey, we're here. He mentioned, in case those didn't hear it, thank you, and he apologized, but no apologies needed. This is why we're here.
Exactly.
Please notify people at the beginning. This call is being recorded.
Yeah.
Yes. No, there is an indicator. In fact, when you join, if you're inside a Hangout on air with the kind that are being broadcast, you actually have to check a box that says you understand that you are being broadcast and recorded. So there's a legal disclaimer at the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's being handled for you by Google.
Thank you. Wonderful.
They're covering their butt. So
Much better.
yours right along with it.
Oh yeah. And I actually, another interesting thing in that regard, and then we'll go on to other things. But there was a lawyer that I was helping set up for, I think it was called Lawyer Cams. I can't remember. This was a couple years ago, and we needed Google to give us some legal disclaimer text. So I was able to get them to give us something that said that basically it's a private, or it's encrypted from your computer to Google's servers, and so there is no activity. I mean, because they can't control what's happening in your environment, but there is no visibility to anybody when it's a private video, even if it's being broadcast privately.
Right.
Excellent.
It's all encrypted, right?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And our audience member says thank you many times.
You're welcome.
Shall we go on to just looking at our time here? I thought maybe good we went to the question on, Ronnie, about
Engagement.
Mm-hmm.
how do Hangouts on air allow you to engage with followers differently than regular videos?
One of the things that makes Hangouts on air sort of unique in a sense, is the ability to do what's called live interaction. And we have some of that going on right now. It's a little bit hindered because of this brand new thing that just came out today, and it's trying to mess with us. But there are people adding comments, and for example, if I'm going to be visible, I will, since I know I'm visible, I'm turning on a comment from the stream. These are people asking questions. I can answer that question or respond to it, and then turn it right back off and continue to talk. So I have the ability to interactively communicate with people that are not able to fit inside this little film strip, because you might have hundreds of people or thousands of people watching while you're live, and let them ask you questions and you can give them answers. So that's something that's rather unique in a sense of this interaction capability that Hangouts on Air offers us.
Excellent point. And then if you want to watch or engage with a Hangout on Air broadcast, since we're already kind of talking about that, how exactly do you do that?
Generally, well, actually there's a lot of different ways, but I'm going to go with the most common way. The most common way is to utilize one of the tools Google gives us, which is called a Hangout on Air event. And inside the event, which is what the people that are sitting in the room don't see that, okay? But everybody else out in the online world does. This is one of the most common places for people to come and interact, and it's a landing page. You think of it this way: if you're familiar with website terminology, it's a place you point people to come at a certain date and time. It's called an event, and it has a video embedded in it automatically, and normally there's an easy place for you to put comments. And so those comments are streaming live while the video is streaming, and the comments are actually top down. So the most recent comment is on the very top right near the video, so that it's easy to see both the video and the newest comment at the same time. And when we want to, we use special tools like we've got right now, the ability to grab some of those comments and bring them visually right onto the screen. So this interaction will take place on an event page generally, and that's the place where people can come before, during, and, this is key, after your event. In case they weren't able to watch it live, they can now come back and watch it again later.
And the other, while we're talking about engagement for a second, something else on the engagement is the people who are members of the audience. We were talking beforehand with some of the people here at our event in person, is that's a good way for you as an audience member to start making connections and engaging with other people and that whole other people's audience type thing.
Right.
And I was saying that I myself have experienced that, and it's can be very powerful to engage with other audience members.
Yeah, let me reiterate that in slightly different words. You, in your meeting room right now, you have numbers of people, and they can all interact with each other because they are physically there, and all they have to do is at an appropriate time reach out and say, "Hi, my name is," and you give them a business card and you pass information. This has been common for years and years and years. We now have that capability, literally, to do that virtually. You've got the ability that you can have hundreds or thousands of people interacting with each other inside these places that are virtual landing places, and you can see, you know, from this person's question, when they kept asking this and they were really interested in that, that's someone I think that I could help. So you can actually reach out to them, start to communicate with them, build a relationship, and then all of a sudden now you've done networking in another place without having to physically travel to get there.
I know, it's really so many facets to this technology and its benefits.
Let's get a question.
We have a question over here from...
Go Rich. Go Rich.
It's coming. From Faranaz. Can I ever make a YouTube video out of one of my own posts?
I'm not positive I understand the question, but you can put a video link into a post, and then it becomes the video is the featured part of the post. I think that might answer the question. So
like
the answer is
embedding?
yes.
So that you're like embedding a video into a post?
Yeah, it's when you're on a place like Google Plus or even Facebook, you have the ability to put in a YouTube link, right? And that YouTube link then sort of features the video as the main content, and you can type additional text, like Marilyn, I know you do this well. You add in what are called timestamps, which allows people sort of an indexing thing to reference the video that's part of that post. So if there were 5 main points in the video, you could put the time when each one of those occurred in the video. Then you just click on that, and it goes right to that particular point in the video content.
Right, and that's an awesome thing as another way to repurpose your HOA shows or your videos. John, I'm going to let you go.
I get to talk.
Hey, I'm sorry, HOA is Hangout on Air. It's just an acronym for that.
Actually,
or it's a homeowner association if you're in real estate. That's been one of my struggles for 3 years.
Okay, now I think you've already kind of touched on it, but maybe we can emphasize it a little more. And that is, in your experience, I know you've talked about some of the barriers that get involved, and are some of those barriers just technical, or is a camera shy kind of things, or what kind of things do you experience in terms of and in helping people kind of get past that a little bit?
Yeah, some of the barriers are technical. I'm usually involved a lot with helping resolve the technical barriers. That's a big portion of what I do with my training. But another portion of the barriers are going to come in with personality types. Some are very comfortable in front of a camera. Others don't want to do the camera at all. Mm-hmm. And so if they are not interested in doing the camera at all, then I tend to not see them. In other words, they don't get to me. They're not interested. But that is a barrier that I've tried to help people with, because I have had multiple guests that will help people get to the point where they're more and more comfortable on the camera and moving into that direction. And so I know that's a concern out there, and so I bring in guests that will help people learn how to become comfortable with the camera. I have a background of training where I did training in front of crowds of people. I did public speaking. And so for me to be in front of a camera sitting in my office is nothing. I mean, it's easy. But for other people, this is a challenge. And so one of the early ways to get started with that, if that's a concern for you, is you turn off the camera. You are there verbally. You have a voice, and other people are there visually, and you might be showing slides or pictures of something and just narrating it, and eventually you get to the point where you sort of let your voice or your face be seen. But honestly, the technology, if you're not getting to the point where you're going to be comfortable in front of a camera, the technology is going to leave you behind, and you're going to lose that as a tool for one of your options.
That's just what I was going to say. Is it basically you just need to get over it? If it's not your thing, you need to find a way to make it at least partly your thing.
Yeah. Now, with that said, let me give you somebody that has a little concern with that some solace. Okay, you can practice without anybody seeing what you're doing. You can create what are called unlisted Hangout on Air broadcasts, and you can just go in there and practice. And then you look at the video, save it, because you're going to want to see your progression, because you are going to get better, and you just do it over and over and over until you're comfortable, and then you do some of your public type activity. That's why I was saying you want to meet with your friends, you want to meet with people doing these interactive, what was the right word, non-recorded or non-broadcast. You're just doing your productivity sessions, and just get used to being on the camera and actually trying to look at the camera instead of looking down at your desk or something like that. And when you're able to make the shift into the unlisted Hangout on Air world, so you can see what it looks like later on, that's going to be beneficial for you to then eventually move into the public realm.
I like all your ideas for what I call baby steps, doing right. Maybe narrating first, or doing an unlisted or private one. Though I have to say, I think you guys have it easy compared to us girls, because you never have bad hair days.
What hair? What hair? Yeah.
There's an advantage to that.
Yes, there is. There is. I can acknowledge that. I fought it for a while, but it's not much I could do.
Yeah. One of the other things that I see coming up from my end, and more of the web visibility aspect, is what do you see? I mean, I kind of know some of the answers here, but I'd like you to get your point of view on what do you see as the various things that not only Hangouts, but the result of the Hangouts with videos can do in terms of enhancing a website's visibility, possibly SEO effects, relationships effects that result. I mean, there's a very complex web there, and maybe you could talk on that a little bit in terms of how it would help a person's visibility of their business.
Sure. I come from a background of SEO, and I've come to the point where I'm quite sure I know nothing. Okay? That's, I think, what happens when you get involved with SEO, because you think you know what's going on, and Google changes the rules, and they don't tell you, of course. And then you're trying to figure out why did this work before, and now it's not working, etc. What I've come to believe nowadays is that there's a thing called the semantic web, and that's a bigger and bigger part, or will become a bigger and bigger part of what we're doing. And semantic web has to do with the concept of the meanings of what we do become visible to Google, and we get ranked on the meaning of what we've said. So the value that we bring to the world gets sort of voted on, and Google's trying to pay attention to that. And for example, Hangouts, I should show up higher on a list than somebody else who doesn't do much with Hangouts, but does happen to post an article about Hangouts. I should have more authority than them, primarily because this is my main area of focus, or my specialty. And a lot of people have said, yeah, Ronnie's a good guy when it comes to Hangouts. So the crowd voting, or the sourcing of information, and the value of that, I think, is becoming more and more commonly done through, you're going to hate it if you don't like this, but through a thing called Google+. Because Google Plus is owned by Google. Okay, we just got to get that out of the way. It's owned by Google, therefore they've got full access to everything that happens inside Google+. With that said, the second largest search engine, Google's the biggest search engine in the world. The second largest is a little one called YouTube. Okay, that happens to also be owned by Google. And guess what? Hangouts involve both YouTube and Google+. So with the combination of that, it's pretty hard to ignore, if you're an SEO person, the potential opportunities that this is going to give you. Now, without all the nerdy nitty-gritty, that's sort of the big picture to say this type of a tool, if you are ignoring it, it's to your peril if you're trying to get new traffic. Because what will happen here, and this is bringing us right back to the very beginning, when I get to meet somebody face-to-face and I start to have a relationship with them, then if I see their text, it's different. It feels different than when I've never met them. If I'm just reading their text, I think I know them, but once I've seen them in a broadcast, or I've seen them in a meeting, all of a sudden I now have a deeper relationship with them. Their text means more to me, and my trust level is higher, so as a result I tend to interact with it more often. And when I interact with it, here's how it's part of the snowball here. When
Yes.
I start to interact with it, Google's paying attention. Big brother Google is watching, and it says, okay, Ronnie knows Marilyn, Marilyn knows Ronnie, they know each other, therefore I'm going to start to show Marilyn's content more often when Ronnie's searching for the words that Marilyn has typed, and vice versa. When Marilyn's looking for the words that Ronnie has typed, there's a better chance we're going to see each other's things, even if I'm not considered the extreme authority there. I am considered a relationship with Marilyn, therefore Google is going to allow my stuff to show up higher than it would otherwise. So this interaction and the relationship capability that you're going to get with these kind of tools is what's moving things forward, in my opinion.
Well, we agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's really it's quite phenomenal, and I'm one of those people that kind of had to get over it because I'm not exactly thrilled to be in front of the camera. But
Right.
I have to say, though, Ronnie, the first Hangout I was ever in, you were running it and also a member of the panel, and you did so much to make everyone, but myself in particular, because I'd been on Google Plus like 2 months at that time, and it was a huge help. So I can vouch for all the things that you do to communicate and teach. You're amazing. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you. Oh, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. But the question, honestly, was about SEO, right? And what we can do to make this add value. If you've got a video that was created in the Hangout on Air, which is what it does, you can take that video, and put it on your website. You could take that video that might be an hour long and slice it into 10 shorter segments that each were covering a certain topic, and now you can blog about that topic with the video as another resource to get some more of that information. So as far as content creation, it's a wonderful tool for allowing you to do that. And don't forget the ability to edit, right? You can download that video and chop it up into the smaller pieces that are going to give you more focused on what you want, which then allows, if you're in the SEO world, it allows you to focus on different keywords. For even that one same conference, you can now get multiple keyword references and content based on different keywords because you've been able to slice it into different parts.
Oh, I love that. I hadn't thought about how if you do the slice and dice, that it allows you then to focus on different keywords. That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have somebody here, Bruce, that says, I use recorded videos to build a library on my web. So here's somebody that is also doing that sort of thing on the comment tracker talking about it. So Bruce is using that very thing to build a library.
Right. Bruce is a realtor. He's part of our group, our Hangout Mastery group, where we talk about all kinds of different ideas of how can we use Hangouts and what can we do them with them, and how's that going to be beneficial to our business. So he's a realtor in Vancouver. Well, I know he's in Canada. I'm pretty sure it's Vancouver, but he can remind us in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we also have one with Dominic. Maybe you can put that up, Rich. Dominic. Yeah. He's right there, right in front of you. Yeah, he's right in front of you. Click him there, and then white box that. There we go. Yes, it asks if there is a way to incorporate slides or JPEGs into the Hangouts for graphic enhancements, such as showing a photo of a home or a slideshow during the Hangout. So that comes into your sharing kind of a concept, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how you can share things with people when you're in Hangouts and Hangouts on Air.
You bet. There's a tool that's built into the Hangout environment, which is called Screen Share. And Screen Share allows you to do what it implies, the sharing of your screen. So when you press that tool, it allows you to show what's on your computer screen, which literally means you could show a website, you could show a graphic, or you could do a combination. So if I have a bunch of different graphics that I want to go through, like a slideshow or a PowerPoint presentation, we can do that. Whatever you show on your screen is something that you can show inside the Hangout. The other part and that should answer that question right there. So the answer is yes, you can do that. But let's take it to the next level where there's more interaction. Because I know there's people in that room there that are helping people develop websites. If you're trying to get this concept of what a web page would look like if you did this and that and whatever, you can make a web page do that and then do a screen share. The person on the other end of the Hangout is able to see you interactively move down, click on a part of the website, see how it opens up something, and then how you can go to, basically you do a demo live inside your Hangout, and that will save you tons of time because you're able to show interactive activity on a website. Or, one more, let's say you're doing customer support, and your support involves your website. You can have your client on the other end that says, I just can't find the button to click. Where do I go? You can have them show you their screen, or vice versa. You can show your screen, and either way, you'll be able to say, here's where the button is. Do you see it right there? And they're like, thank you, and then they move on.
Yeah, that's really good. I use that a lot when customers that I interact with are showing me the kind of ideas they want and where they want their PayPal buttons to come off of and things like that, and we can do it interactively right there without any kind of guessing, without saying, well, is it on page so-and-so and whatnot. We can really zero in on specifically what they want, and then later on, when it's kind of almost done, we can do a preview of what I've done and talk about it and kind of resolve any issues really quickly. And actually I found in the past before that was available that people would go look at it and there would be a misunderstanding. They would say, oh, I thought this. By having them look at it with me, we resolve those instantly. And usually we avoid that feeling of what's going on here, or I didn't want that, kind of a feeling, and resolve it really quickly.
and this is going to sound rather uppity or high-ended, but here's the concept. You've just built trust.
Mm-hmm.
So you've just become a much more valuable person because you not only showed them what they needed to see, you answered their questions instantly about what they were seeing, and you were able to then provide them what they really wanted because you got the instant feedback and you can make the modifications live. And
Right.
so that means you're a much more trustworthy contractor. And as a result, there's a longer lifespan they're going to have with you as a business person.
And then they might talk about you. They might
Nicely, yes.
comment
Yeah.
nicely
Hopefully.
and post something nice about you, and all that adds up to, well, guess what? Your SEO, visibility stuff.
Right,
So,
and your authority, and yeah, sorry, I can go on forever with that, but let's move on.
Well, it's okay. So let's say that you've convinced someone right now, yes, I want to move forward. What would you say is the best path to follow for them to get ready to do their, let's go with broadcasting for now to get started on that.
Okay, so the broadcasting path, as we'd mentioned before, I would suggest you don't start with the broadcast. That's not where you want to start. You want to start with your productivity, you alone actually, inside of a Hangout video call. Not recorded, just you. You're poking around, looking at the buttons, press things, see what you can do to make things break, okay? And you're just doing it alone and nobody cares. Then you bring in a coworker into a Hangout video call and you start to get a feel for what it's like having a conversation with somebody in this video environment. Then I would move into the realm where you're doing what are called unlisted Hangout on air broadcasts. In other words, the practice where nobody sees you doing it, but you're actually making recordings and you go back and look at those. You can do that also with your coworkers. So you build these little steps to the point where you get more and more confident. Then I would become a member of somebody else's Hangout. See what you can do to be a friend of them and say, I'd like to come help you do something in it. Or I'll be there to answer any questions that I might be valuable to help you with. But you're not running the show. You're just in there as a guest. And then the last step is you start to run your own show. The biggest thing I've seen that's a biggest problem for most people is they start to go to the very bottom, the last step first. They try to do this broadcast and start doing their running of the show before they've ever done any of the process of learning how the tools work. And then what happens, unfortunately, is they focus on the technology. They're not focused on their message. Their message should be about their business and what they're trying to communicate. And instead they're saying, oh, you know, this little button wasn't there before, but we're going to do the best we can. And then you just sort of, you run into this thing that, and the message gets lost because the technology has not disappeared. I try to help people make the technology disappear so that you're in here just communicating and getting your message across.
That is such a great point of making the technology disappear. There's a lot of head nodding going on out here, just so you know.
Good.
And I think that all of us just want to get down to it. I've got all these other things I have to do, and we want to look for a shortcut.
Yeah.
And usually that comes back to bite us.
Yeah. Well, there are some, to a degree, some shortcuts, and we'll use this sort of as a plug time for me. I do training. I'm a trainer. That's what I do. And so I do consultations. When someone wants the ultimate shortcut, they meet with me. I walk them through it, maybe 1 or 2 sessions, and then they're ready to go, and they move on. When someone wants a more collaborative environment where there's a lot of people involved, then we have the thing that I've got all over the place behind me called the Hangout Mastery. And this is a membership environment where I do training, and there's plenty of other members that are helping each other, and we're brainstorming all the time about what do we do with this? This just came out. Does anyone like it? Do we hate it? What are we going to do with it? And so that type of an environment, depending on how you like to learn things, it's more of a self-guided environment, but you're amongst a bunch of other people that are using Hangouts and learning it, or work with somebody like me for consultations, or when I've got a product, buy the product and do it on your own time when it seems to make sense for you. But the key, and whether it's with me or someone else, the key is try to learn as much as you can, and depending on, well, here's the trick, right? You don't know that it's worth it to you yet because you haven't tried it. But you've got to learn to do it well. And so you've got this dichotomy, this problem So what I would encourage you to do is identify, is there anybody else in your world, your space, your marketplace that's using it well? If they are, go watch them, see what they're doing with it, and then determine, is this something that you have the time or the eventual skill set to learn to do that way? And if that's the case, then I'd adopt it. I'd try to learn it. That would be one of the easy ways, sort of a shortcut. Is there someone else using this well in your market niche or niche?
Yeah. There's some controversy about how to say that,
Yeah.
depending on whether you're French or English or technical or whatever. I come from the world of the botany, and in botany it was niche. That was how we used the term. In ecology and botany, it was not niche. It was niche.
Yeah.
But anyway, be as it may. We have a question out here in the audience.
How do we find a Hangout that's of interest to us in our profession?
How do you find a Hangout that's of interest to you in your profession or business?
It's a Google thing. So Google's known for search, and so what you do is you go and you search for the word and add the word Hangout to it, or the niche area, and add the word Hangouts. There's a lot of these will happen within events, and so within Google Plus you can filter and say, I just want to look for the events, and you look for certain titles like that. But there's also a thing called a hashtag, and that also will help you start to identify who's doing what with this particular space. If somebody's doing something well, they're going to start to use hashtags to help identify what their content is. And then you can sort of identify who's doing what and then follow what they're doing, and eventually you'll find some of the Hangouts if they're doing Hangouts.
Okay, do we have somebody up here on the screen here, Rich? Which one you have here?
From Zara?
From Zara. And I can't read it because it's all kind of funky.
Oh, Zara, we're really sorry.
Yes, but on Hangouts, it's about PowerPoint, not take over the entire screen. So she was having an issue about PowerPoint not taking over the entire screen when you are the host. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, the tip is, and I was trying to find her comment, see if I could bring it up on screen, but I'm not even able to see that right now. The tip is, it's called Browse in Individual Window. There's your tip. In other words, the setup for the PowerPoint itself has a very specific setting for the slide share that allows you to, quote, browse in individual window, which means you can move the window around. If the window's movable, it's a lot easier to screen share. When it takes over the whole screen, it becomes much more difficult to screen share.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and OpenOffice has that same feature, and also the Google Docs presentation has that feature too. So you can do it with all of them. They seem to have that feature.
Yeah, a movable window is the key for screen share. If you can make something move around, then that's going to be a lot easier to share on your screen.
Yeah, if you share just that screen, it will fill the whole space pretty good. So yeah, it does a good job of that. Great.
And we have a question here.
Yes, I have a question. It's I think it's a technology question. One of the things I've noticed in watching, because we have you up on the screen here, is that the sound and the video are out of sync. Is that typical? Is there something that can be done about that?
The question was, why are the sound and the video out of sync, and can you do anything about that?
The answer is maybe. Generally, the sound and video should not be out of sync, and it's going to tie into the broadcast capability where you are. In other words, the internet, and specifically the upload speed. That's normally where the biggest hurdle comes in for getting the synchronization to happen. The other part is potentially the speed at which your computer is operating. If your computer is busy doing other things, it may have a harder time keeping up with the words that you're saying so that the video and the sound are synced. But they normally are pretty good as long as you are able to use a wired connection, like an Ethernet cable. Yeah, if you start to go into wireless, then it starts to get a little bit harder to do.
Yeah, I had mentioned that earlier to somebody asked me why all the wires, and we've got everything wired together. But I do notice that on my computer, which is a much more powerful computer than Marilyn's, you're in much more sync. And on Marilyn's, there's just a slight delay, which is
Yeah, it's a big delay up there.
yeah, which is what you're seeing there.
Yeah,
well,
and if
what you're seeing though is you're seeing my screen, but if I'm watching my screen, there's no delay, and it's the through the wire and up over to there that's causing the delay because it's going on this long video thing into the wall, then it's going up to the wall and into that screen up there.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, John, are you showing the interface or are you showing the YouTube video up on the wall?
I'm mirroring my screen.
Okay, so they're seeing the interface. They're not
Right.
seeing the broadcast video.
Right.
The how do we say this? The whole experience is optimized for the video, not
Right.
necessarily for the interface when you're in a Hangout on Air, because the bottom line is the majority of the people are usually watching live outside of the interface.
Right.
And so as a result, when Google has to make a compromise, which sometimes they do, they're going to make the internal visuals less synced than the broadcast, because the broadcast is going to live on, and that's going to be more important in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, good. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
So, yeah.
Well, we are sort of approaching the
Yeah.
end. Unbelievably, it's gone so fast.
Wow.
But
Is it going through
a
that?
couple of things, just some closing thoughts from you, and how people, you have mentioned a little bit, but maybe a little bit more specific, how people can connect with you.
Yes, yes.
You
Because
bet.
I use your Hangout helper stuff all the time when I get into trouble and Hangout Mastery, so
Yeah.
it's valuable. So I'm a fan.
All right, thanks. Well, if you look right down here, and this is part of the feature of Hangouts, we can add these things called lower thirds, a graphic that represents information about you. There's my name, but there's also a thing that says The Hangout Helper. And if you go to thehangouthelper.com, that's a wonderful way to contact me, sign up for emails, or send me a request for something. I've also got this membership thing, and I'm trying to get that particular one loaded, because I have some stored here. Mastery. Is that the right one? Yeah. This is a link right to the Hangout Mastery area. It's free. You can go in and look, but to become a member is a paid membership thing. So you can go to that bit.ly link right there, bit.ly/Hangout Mastery, and there's about 4 or 5 different videos that are available to help you learn Hangouts right away. And then if you want to get further into it, you can look at the testimonials of everybody that's there, and then you can decide if that's good, something for you. And it's a month-to-month membership, so if nothing else, come on in for a month, see how wonderful it is, and if you don't think it's phenomenal, leave. It's okay.
It has been super helpful. We had this set up here with a live audience, and also as a Hangout on Air. It's got some extra wrinkles in it, and I know that the first time we really had trouble, and I know John got into the master group, posted a question, had some excellent responses from several of the members, still had some questions. You got into a Hangout with him, Ronnie, and resolved everything. So we can really say it has been super helpful, the Hangout Mastery group.
Okay, do you have any closing other thoughts and about just Hangouts in general? And
Sure. My closing thought is, whether it's with me or somebody else, if it's something that seems interesting to you, try to learn enough so that when you're in your broadcast, you can focus on your messaging rather than the technology. That's the bottom line. Because when you see other people doing these Hangouts and they're not looking so good because they're not sure what they're doing, it really distracts away from the message as well as their authority. And it's rather tough to say it that way, but that's the bottom line. If you're not seen as an authority with your message, then people will pass you over and they go to someone else. So to rather keep this from being a detriment, you want it to be a value add. You're going to want to learn how to use the tools before you make it visible.
Such an important point. People have so many options now, so you have to give them a reason why they'd want to spend time with your Hangout, your event. So well said.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Ronnie, and we really value all your help and assistance here.
Let's give him a round of applause.
And let's give him a round of applause. We have our own applause app here.
The applause app has taken over, but there you have real live tactile feedback.
Bye-bye.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.